This evening's Dharma talk is titled, give me a minute. What did I say?
Let forms fall apart.
Yes, thank you. Let forms fall apart. I was following my own suggestion there a little bit too intensely. So let forms fall apart. There's lots of ways of saying the same thing, and the Buddhist teaching is there's only half a dozen things that is really fundamentally being said. And it's said in so many different ways. And it seems necessary to say it in so many different ways. And all of those ways are valuable to different people in different ways, in different times, different cultures, different environments, different mindsets, different conditioning, on and on and on. All the dependent origination, all the conditions and causes that are coming apart or coming forward are complicated, and it's hard to navigate. So what do? We want to navigate because we're somebody, and we want to make sure we know where we're going. We want to get somewhere. We want to be successful. It's called materialism. Not wrong, just circular. Not wrong, just make circles. It looks like a straight line. It's a circle. So what am I saying here? What I'm recommending to people who have an awareness practice, a sitting practice of meditation where you sit down, hold still, and observe. Now you may do that there's different techniques and so on that you may be using. I'm not here to particularly to discuss that. I would just say that simpler is better. So usually because of hope for something else, something better, fear of something worse, something that might take us over, might come forward when we don't want it to, or something that is just in the way is we don't need. Passion, aggression, and ignorance is the basic teaching there. And so the way to work with that, my understanding from doing this for a while, the way to work with that is to do it through awareness, not through the thinking process or evaluations or constructs or concepts. That doesn't mean we do away with those. We need those. You can't climb up onto something without some kind of steps or a ladder. You need that ladder. But the ladder is not the goal. The ladder is not the summit. Kind of weak images sometimes, but need something. So in order to actually, if you follow what I'm saying a little bit, then through your sitting practice, you'll notice that forms arise. Usually they aren't in the shape of something that is just, well, that's another form. Here we are with more forms. So another 3 more forms came, and then 2 left, and there's about 15 still hanging around looking for some acknowledgement. You know what thoughts are like. Disturbing, irritating, or else they're fluffy and they're enjoyable and they're smooth. They have a nice texture, a nice color, a nice smell, taste, touch. All the 6 sense fields come into that. Have you noticed? All those are available in your imagination. Body mind is connected with that, but is not necessary. Those things can occur without a physical form. That's how it looks. As far as how it is, I don't know. You might have to find that out. I can't say this is how it is. I might be able to, like any teaching person, might be able to say, look this way, look that way, look at it this way, look at it this way. If a teaching person is trying to do it for you, then they're not actually teaching. They're interfering with you, actually. They might want some credit. So what it seems that necessary to do is to just observe the way in your brain pan, in your mind, your stream of consciousness, the way things are shaping up, the way they shape up. Do not do anything with them. Even if they're incredibly interesting and valuable, and we really need to go in there and use that to figure out that, like a brilliant idea that you had about something, about the way the mind works. You know what I'm saying? You get seduced by that stuff. And it's not that it doesn't have relative truth on its side. Of course, that's why it's so damn seductive. It's so seductive to go into this. And so if you're blessed with a really powerful intelligence, like I was not, you may find yourself becoming a great scholar Find yourself using your incredible intellect, insight, intelligence to figure this out and explain it to everyone else. And again, this is not wrong. It's not incorrect. It's what needs to happen. Some people, their karma actually compels them, propels them into that kind of an approach, and it's necessary. That's why the Buddha was not a simple-minded oligarch. You notice he didn't set it up in such a way that somebody was going to worship him forever, although a lot of people do it. What was there, 18 schools? And that was not a mistake. He knew what he was doing. He knew that he needed to respond to things as they were, and they were confusing. It was the world was deluded. The world did not see its delusion, so he let it float. And of course, all the different people who were inspired by him in their own way would say, and of course I wasn't there, but as far as I know, but I think he said, I think he meant this. I think we should emphasize this. I don't think he was really. He said, didn't he say something like, do away with those precepts? Well, you should keep a few. But he didn't say, keep this one, and this one. That was deliberate, I think. No, maybe not. Maybe you'll dig up something in your treasure hunts where you'll find something that said, he said something else. And I don't mind. So when you're doing sitting meditation and your personal forms, I don't like this, I don't like this isn't doing so good, I'm not getting along good with my spouse, my wife, my neighbor, my congressman, for that matter, anybody, you're just having some kind of an issue with any situation, if you have a strong sitting practice, there's a good chance there's going to be a lot more space between what arises and what you do about it. Hopefully, insofar as I deal in hope at all. So when the form arises, just look at the form. It's not this exactly, but it's almost like you have to depersonalize that, because if there has any body odor on it that you recognize, you're going to get drawn into it. This doesn't mean that you should ignore anything that's arising. It's just that don't agree with it, don't disagree, and don't ignore it. Those are the three poisons. Those are the three hooks that are flying around on that windmill, or I should say windmill. And it's not even about not getting hooked. It's about, if you do get hooked, don't add to that. I shouldn't have gotten hooked. Oh, there I go again. I just can't seem to do this or that. It's always about awareness. It's never about a conclusion or an exclusion. So if you actually look, the form that's arising, whether it's anger, irritation, or maybe some resentment, or maybe some negative feelings about how you've been doing on a particular project or a relationship with your spouse or your children or your parents or your Dharma teacher, whatever that may be, or your Sangha, just look at that form as it is, as a form, rather than some kind of personal thing against you or for you. See if you can look at that because if you can't, if you can't let, what was the title of the talk?
Let forms fall apart.
Was that it? Nah. Was that it? That's a bad name. Okay, we'll use that. So if you see the form and there's any kind of personal, if you inject any kind of personal preference, picking and choosing anything in there, even if it's validated by relative truth, by that you have all kinds of evidence. I'm not interested in evidence. And if you're interested in evidence, then you're going to prove something. And then someone else will come on with some other evidence to prove something else. And then you've got what we call, you know what that is. It's called a merry-go-round. That's why that's entertaining, is to go around, because the illusion of getting somewhere is put on a circle. And don't take this to the bank. In other words, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't do any of this. It's always about awareness. So it's not about changing. It's not, like I often say, I don't need any followers. If you're here, give me the benefit of the doubt. But I'm not going anywhere, so there's nobody to follow. So what happens when you actually see the form in all of its clarity, in its crispness, in its high resolution, that's when it hurts the most, or that's when it's the most seductive or the most convincing. And that is the very time when you see that it is unreal. Because if you're trying to get it to back off or go away or not be so powerful, you're in for it. Don't go to war with anything. If you go to war with anything, because of the nature of non-duality or Advaita, or that they're not two things anywhere, because of the nature of that, then you're actually buying into the delusion. You're actually creating an enemy. The actual warfare gets the thing that you're opposing or trying to get rid of is getting its energy from you because it's your projection. And it's not, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. What's funny is that it's so obvious if you see it. If you don't see it, struggle. It's difficult. And then we try different ways. We, as the Vidyadhara Chogyam Trungpa would describe it, that we go to the spiritual supermarket and try to see if isn't there anything that's available for this particular problem or issue. The interesting thing is if you just look at the form, nothing lasts. The very nature of the three marks of existence, impermanence, no self, and suffering. The very nature of that is the way out of this. This, the way into it is the way out of it. It won't, if you do nothing with it, then it comes apart because it can't last. It will not last. Only that which is uncreated can last. And it's not even lasting. It doesn't care whether it lasts or doesn't last. Lasting and not lasting is that's a low level. That's a fourth grade level. The whole issue of time and space is it's just a construct that we use as apparent separate beings to invade other villages. We've been doing it for centuries. And if you see what this is through watching the forms fall apart, if you see what it is, there will be no conclusion. If there's a conclusion, you missed the point. If there's a conclusion, you actually created a point which you are assuming or endeavoring to justify that you've missed. You'll actually create the very point that you don't want to miss. I'm sure you're following me. Go ahead.
Question from online from Juzan.
Who's he? Oh, that's Freedom Mountain. Yeah, well, you just said so.
His question is, what is boredom?
Well, the downside of it is you already know, but the upside is it signifies that you are weaning yourself away from the need for entertainment. You don't need to be filled up with anything. You already have everything you need. So if you're feeling boredom, the downside is it sucks, boredom. But the upside is this is how it feels to slowly not need anything. Would you say that has?
Well, yeah, but that's not so fun, is it?
Wait a minute. I thought it was quite entertaining. It's fun to watch your desires go away. It's fun to watch. Like in my situation, simply put, I'm not going to go into my diet, but I can't help but personalize everything I do because I'm a person. So to just notice that I don't have a snack hunger, that's kind of nice not to have that. So the dependent origination in there, I can't go into that. I'm not a dietitian, nor am I knowledgeable about that area. But I do know about this body, speech, mind situation. And so boredom is it's a significator that you're actually wean yourself away from the need for something else. That's what the Buddha said. Life is suffering. Why? Because you want something else. Second noble truth is desire. We want something else. This is not enough. We like this. We appreciate it. Don't get me wrong, Mr. Universe. We like this. It's fine. We just want more of it, or we want less of it. Yes.
Do we die every time we sit?
Who's to say you're alive? I'm not accusing you of anything.
Could that?
Keep coming.
Can't Renato.
You can't Renato?
Yeah, sure.
Is that a sports card? Keep coming. Yeah, that's good. Keep going. Drag it out of me.
Can't Renato.
Okay. Go down.
You said that If we come to a conclusion, you miss the point. So then what is the point?
I don't know, the conclusion covered it up. It's not actually a point. You didn't do that. You're kidding me, right? So, bringing it all back home, what I'm basically saying is, if you watch with clarity, and that clarity might show up just like the weaning yourself away from entertainment. What comes up when you do that is boredom. It's not a very good feeling because you're doing without something you've been kind of addicted to. And so if you look at forms, we get addicted to the form and to knowing something about it. We don't care if it's positive, negative, or neutral. We just want to, what is our relationship to that, which reestablishes the validity or the apparent validity of a self that knows something. It's just grasping at ego. Twofold, what is the 30 verses? What is his description of that? You remember that one verse?
Which verse?
Just give me one of them, They're all. That one.
If consciousness isn't situated in perception only, the twofold grasping will not cease to operate.
Yes, twofold grasping will not cease to operate. And what is twofold grasping?
Assumption of you, self, and other.
Okay, that's part of them. Any more?
This and that.
Apples and oranges. Yeah, there's lots of them. They're all over the place. So the idea there with perception is that's what's being. When I could just give a talk on that, but to say it a little bit differently, what I'm endeavoring to do is say, when something arises in your mind, you can train yourself. You can practice the lessening of the grasping, lessening of the rejecting, which is another form of grasping, and lessening of the shutting down by just concentrating, or not fixating, but just concentrating on the form itself, the quality, the texture, the shape, the color, the tone, the smell, the flavor, until I'm just going to say it in as a simple way as I can, but it will not necessarily happen this way. So if you look for results, you could go in a circle. But the way I want to say it is, it will stop having a personality. It doesn't have one in the first place, but we impute, or we think that there's something personal in everything. We're doing it constantly. So by doing that, you eventually see the bare aspect, the pure perception of the form. And when you see that, then what happens after that, as if there is a next, is you'll see that it is actually empty of the nature that you thought that it was. It's empty of itself. Therefore, it's full. And so there's a way to figure that out. If you see that, if you understand that, there's no way anybody can knock you out of the saddle. There's no saddle. There's no one to knock you out of. It's called unconditional confidence. And there's no one there, and there's nothing to be confident in, and there's no reference point. And you can live that way. You can actually live without that, without the common reference point of success and failure, winning and losing, and even life and death. Life and death are just ghost stories. Go ahead.
Earlier, the stone didn't light when they were offering incense. Is that perfect as it was, even though it didn't burn the incense?
Yes, whatever occurs is it. Now there, you can come into it with another direction and say that there's something wrong with that. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can apply relative truth, but it's funny that even people who are nuclear physicists who go into what particle physics and so on can't actually find out what things actually are. They know what they look like, they know what they do, but they don't know what they are. What is it, a particle and a wave, I think? Not that I'm knowledgeable about that. Some kind of stuff like that.
So with that form, that's letting it fall apart, even though it didn't light the incense. That's letting it fall apart. Just doing it is the source that you're looking for.
Whatever occurs is just what happens. It's not that something occurs didn't screw things up and mess up the structure that you're fixing lunch or something, or it's not that something didn't happen that makes the rest of your day difficult. that, causes and conditions happen like that. But there's no person experiencing that. That doesn't mean that the emotions, the intensity, the nerve endings that are abraded by that aren't really intense. They might even be more intense without a self, because the self actually can cover it up with its excuses, its justifications, and its complaints. So it muffles it. But you need to live your life. Don't avoid your suffering. I'm not saying go the other way and be miserable and suffer. I'm just saying whatever arises, be a good host. Just allow things to occur. Allow the emotions to happen. Not that you can't have a deeper understanding of that situation. It's not that something that you like you did something bad, so you've got it coming. That kind of karmic understanding. I'm not saying that. Although people talk like that a lot, so they can do whatever they want. Hugh.
When the personality of the form falls away, what happens to the characteristics?
They can still be there. They just don't have you could say another way, just using visual metaphors, which I enjoy. You could say that it becomes transparent. It's there, but it's like a chimera. It's like celluloid. You can see through it. It's like a stage play. It's there and it's operating and it functions, but it's unreal. Isn't it interesting that you can really enjoy a movie knowing it's a total make believe, and yet it's still, we feel our paranoia and our heartstrings, so to speak, and our gut level. Yes, sir.
That's similar to our personality, the mask that we wear. The etymology of the word person is mask. So when I take the mask off, I become transparent, and I still have tendencies and characteristics.
What's your question? You don't have to have one, but
Is that similar?
you don't have to take a mask off. Don't bother. There's too much gaining idea in that. Start taking masks off. I just had to unmask. Poor shit. It just doesn't work that way. You have to actually see the mask is unreal, and to take it a little further, even be willing to have that mask forever. There's no gaining idea. You don't get to get ahead here. This is a spiritual path. It's not a mundane path. If you want a mundane path, it's all over the internet. Go out and find somebody that'll sell you something. You follow me? I'm not scolding you. Might sound like it. I'm just saying isn't it great? What a good thing. You can actually be who you are.
Be my mask.
Absolutely. That's why when some people ask me what happened to me, I say nothing's happened. Of course, something's happened, but it's not the conventional kind of happening. So therefore, I can't agree. Nothing has happened. Something went away, and it was a belief there was somebody to defend or protect. There isn't anyone. Not only here, there isn't anyone here. I could say more, but I need to be asked questions in order to talk more. Yes.
Earlier, when you were responding after we talked about the verse, you said concentrate on the senses. I never heard you say concentrate. What do you mean?
It was always the first time. So I'm just saying, use that when you're sitting and in your post meditation or however you want to see it. Just look at whatever's happening. The Trungpa Rinpoche said something that always stuck with me. His was more of a different dynamic than what I'm talking about. He said, first thought, best thought. He was just saying that the first thing that arises is generally probably has the most validity to it because you haven't had time to screw it up. I think even his book of poems is called First Thought, Best Thought. So I would say I'm saying something somewhat similar, but I'm not saying necessarily first thought, best thought. I'm not going so far as to say that what arises is best. And that's what he was doing. And he had his rationale. He was talking to thousands and thousands of people. That was a pretty good teaching for thousands and thousands of people to get. But personally, I wouldn't say that to someone. I mean, I've repeated what he said because I think it's valuable. But I'm just saying, don't even go that far. Just whatever's arising, just look at it. Just observe. Be extremely generous to everything. Give everything your attention. There isn't anything that isn't your business. But don't be nosy. And there isn't anything that isn't your responsibility. Yes, sir.
So you would say no thought, best thought?
Is that what you'd say?
I would say that.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay. Be careful.
First thoughts are overrated.
They are. Yeah, I think I'd go along with that. Although I don't think that. Of course, if you think that first thoughts are overrated, that's the second thought about the first thought, and so you've already got yourself in a pee willy piss shit bug poop. Oh.
What?
Bad.
Did you say
Erase
on
that. Where's Shoto?
Christmas?
Sorry about that.
Just my third thought.
Yeah, that was the third. Here I'm commenting on yours, and I have my own circus of elaboration.
They do a lot. They do peripherate, don't
They do. They periphery. Peripheral. Yeah. What you said.
Michael Bowing, Juzan has another question.
Yes. Freedom Mountain.
What if the form just doesn't fall apart?
Doesn't matter. It's the awareness that's important. The occurrence is that's none of your business. I mean, everything is your business, but on the other hand, from the point of view of accepting, rejecting, judging, evaluating, is it good? Is it bad? Should it or shouldn't it? Am I okay? Am I not okay? But just seeing the falling apart or the not falling apart, they're not two different things. It's just like it's difficult to talk about this one, but it can be done in some ways if the right questions are asked. But good and evil are just two. There's only good. There's only basic goodness. Evil is just the misunderstanding part of it. Yes, sir.
Is bringing awareness to the attachment to the form.
Yeah.
What we're endeavoring to do.
Yeah, just you're sitting, you hold everything still that you can, and you watch what continues to move, and you will, over time, depends on how much you do that, you'll begin to see the way in which you delude yourself, or the way in which delusion has personalized itself for your particular dynamic. Your way of avoiding reality may show up as pushing, pulling, shutting down, or a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It may rotate this way and rotate that way. There's all kinds of descriptions of how that works with different personalities, but you don't really need to study all that. You could just sit down. You have your own what is it? N equals 1 right here, your own laboratory, if you want to say that. Sit down, hold still, watch what minds and awaken. And I'm not here. I can't help you, but I can help you. Go ahead.
Is an awakening a form?
The concept of it is a form, yes. Awakening does not happen. Nothing is asleep. If you think some people are asleep and some people aren't, then you'll continue to struggle. I'm not accusing you of anything. More? Less? Goes on.
Let forms fall apart. And you said when forms arise, what is a form?
What do you think it is? How many levels of
Anything
forms are there?
that's distinct from anything else or appears distinct from anything
Yeah.
else.
Form. And then if I say blue-green, and you have an image or an understanding of it, you may be visual, you may not be, but you're conceptual enough to have an idea what that is. And that's separate from red. And those are forms that have a conceptual dynamic, but they also have a visual dynamic. And if I say avocado, we know how that tastes. We know there's a texture there that's recognizable. There's a taste there that's entirely distinct from tomatoes. Form. It's an incredible form. It is a vast display of the way all the different way that that forms come about and bring about personality or tones and pictures and visions and textures. It's astonishing. It's called what do they call that? A cornucopia.
So what is the falling apart if that is arising choicelessly?
It's the belief or disbelief in anything. If you believe it, then that adds to it, and that is called materialism or fixation. If you disbelieve it and reject it and get away from it, that's also creating another dynamic for duality, or thinking that things are separate, or excluding something else so you can have your own reality, or joining something else so you can be part of a larger whole. More?
So when you say let the form fall apart, how can you do that?
By watching the way you hang on. By if you sit down, hold still, each person would have their own personal storyline about the way in which they're attached or clinging to certain ideas. Somebody said something that's really bothered you. They haven't said they're sorry. Things like that. That's kind of a simplistic thing, because there's some forms that are even more intense and have much more jagged edges than that, like someone really close to you dying that you miss, and you have. But that's the belief that they're a solid being that can actually exit and end. All they did is leave the room. And it's very, very selfish of people to go into remorse that's based on that. I would never say that to someone who's in the middle of that, because that would be unfair to them. That would be trying to say something to change them. And their confusion should be respected. They should be allowed to go through that. But buying into that may not be helpful to them. Go ahead.
Is there a difference between remorse and grief?
Well, remorse is maybe more like something you think you could have done something about or not done. You could have not hurt that person's feelings, or you could have not obstructed them or in some way. Whereas grief may be something that looks more like you had no say-so about. Someone was taken from you, and so you're grieving the loss of that, of your of your pet, or of your sister, your brother, your husband, your mom. Is that what? Yeah. So just a different shape of the same similar kind of emotion. It's not about stopping that. It's about actually being completely with that, but realizing that its fundamental nature is unreal.
To be with something that's uncomfortable, do we have to gesture to go towards it?
Moving to the cushion is a gesture to go towards that part of your life that you're shutting down on. Go over, sit down. This is the gesture. Sit down, hold still, and prepare yourself. And how do you prepare yourself? So find everything that's moving, and in a simple, gentle kind of way, hold it still. But don't demand. Don't turn into sometimes some cultures are more macho, and they want to sit you in a box, or they want to tell you never to move and don't blow your nose and all that. But I'm not going to do that here. Not that didn't make some kind of benefit culturally in the 13th century, but we don't need it now. And so sit down, hold still, and watch what is coming and going, and don't grasp it, don't reject it, and don't shut down on it. And in that way, you begin to really see in a deep way how your particular confusion, how your klesha mind is operating. You actually get to see your pride and your humiliation. Same thing. If you think pride is to be gotten rid of and humiliation, who what I'm talking about? Oh yeah.
Same penny.
Huh?
Same penny.
Yeah. Same penny. It's interesting that it's set up that way. Who did that? Nobody here knows. We don't have to know who did it. Who is extra? Have a few minutes. Anyone else? Questions? Michelle.
So when you kind of said earlier something about when somebody dies, they've just left the room, is a way of kind of looking at when we see our friends just leave the room, do they die?
Well, in a sense, they do. They're not here. It's an interesting area, because quite a bit of the grief there is not about them. It's about us and our attachment to them and our feeling about them and all. Don't misunderstand. I'm not minimizing the emotion of the feeling. It could be extremely difficult and disturbing. But if a person is a meditator, you might be able to handle that. You might not be able to what would you say, overcome that and never have any negative feelings. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the way in which you work with the negativity is not to add on to the negativity by saying, well, it shouldn't be there, or I don't deserve this, or it must be my terrible karma, or, all kinds of additions that are not actually allowing the form to empty out. The form needs to empty out, and it can't empty out. It's just a relative way of saying it. It doesn't do anything actually, but you just see that you can't. There's nothing there. It's like you have a projector and you're looking for a screen, but since you're no longer adding on to the situations that are rising in front of you, then they become less and less screen-like. Every time you try to shine something on something so you know what it is, you just get white light. To ego, that's terrifying. But to Buddha nature or a wisdom mind, it's just another snapshot of itself. Don't believe a word I say. I'm not here to convince you of anything. If you feel that I'm wrong or off, keep the principal witness. Stick with your own mind. If you need me, let me know. If you don't, do something else. You gonna sneeze?
Almost.
Any other questions? Anyone online? Yes.
You were talking about how Trump will use the term basic goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a good and bad polarity, and that's not something that is that polarity, what is the word good in that sense?
You have to say something. You have to say something. So sure, it's a polarized word, but the way we could use Tathagata Shunyata or Dharmata or Dharmadhatu, or there's all kinds of fancy words that we could use, but I think it was a good to say basic goodness. It's not the goodness that has its opposite of good and bad. It's not the divisive kind of basic good and bad. It's just fundamentally wholesome and good, and it doesn't have a polarity to it. It's not at war with anything. So this doesn't mean that basic goodness is going to be a pushover, that some kind of terrible slave driver is going to come charging in and take everything over. They might, the person who is good as opposed to bad, who has a pretense of goodness, might be more apt to cower and run from that evil. The person who's basically good will take them out because there isn't anyone, and their understanding is it goes through the floor to the center of the earth and right out the other side. The understanding doesn't have any boundaries. There aren't any walls of the mind. There isn't even Buddhism. Even Buddhism is just a raft to get to the other side of the river, to use that metaphor. So therefore, that person's not threatened by their own, oh, what if I did something bad? It doesn't function for them. So therefore, basic goodness why Trungpa Rinpoche was such an outlandish person, because he functioned out of his karma. He was not denying his karma. And, we get to deal with it or not. There's people that are judging him and evaluating him, and probably with good reason. He was a rascal. Yes.
Earlier, when you were talking about someone dealing with remorse, you said that trying to correct that situation would be disrespectful to their confusion, but also joining it would also be harmful. And it seems like that could be like rejection or aggression and passion.
Could be.
How could we work with a situation like that when it seems like there's not a lot of wiggle room?
That's it. If there were wiggle room, then it'd be suspect, but there isn't any wiggle room. More? That was probably enough. Keep coming. Help me.
Like Bonnie, so would you, I guess the only thing coming up is, would you just say nothing?
Probably. This doesn't, if you're actually there with the situation, you're completely present, probably you wouldn't say much. There's not a lot you can say in a situation where another person is going through that kind of intensity. But if you try to do anything with it, you're actually buying into it, and you could say you're making it worse for them. Not fundamentally worse, but you're making it even more difficult to see the illusory nature of what they're going through. They'll believe their emotions even more. This doesn't mean that you stand outside and set up some kind of a form saying, I don't do that. I don't buy into anybody's stuff. That's existential bullshit. Sorry. I forget there's children watching.
No,
No? Oh, you turned them off?
no, you didn't.
Did you do that? So you follow me a little bit? So don't accept, don't reject, but stay with them. Don't ignore them. Look in their eyes. Depending on the situation, stay with them. If they ask for some kind of something, I don't know what it would be, but of course, help them. Be with them. Spend time with them. Hold their hand. Hug them. Yes.
So if we're not functioning out of I'm not going to meddle with this person. If we have thoughts of meddling that arise,
Not a problem. Just don't believe them. Which also means don't disbelieve them. No comment. No commentary on anything. Thoughts are just. But by that time, assuming you've begun to understand this in a deep way, you'll be able to have anything will have free play in your mind stream, because there's no longer a solid being guarding anything. So terrible, horrible things can come rushing through. Monsters can come through. But they can't find anybody, so sorry, nobody's at home. They go on their way. Or not, because it doesn't matter if they stay or leave. You're no longer at war with anything. No longer at war. Good idea. And it's not even an idea. It's just the nature of things once all the hyperbole has started to bleed through and faded. So taking a position on either one of those situations, you follow me on that? Just don't take a position. And that might involve seeing how you keep grasping at something or grasping at this. But it's just, if you just watch the grasping and don't add any kind of nomenclature or no philosophy to it, no psychology, no pterodactyls, just that. It's just that. And if it's just that, you won't know what it is. This is when form begins to show up as empty of its of the content you thought was there. It's just a form. Exciting, huh? I like that mudra. So a few minutes if there's any other questions. Thank you so much.
I stand and dedicate the merit that's in the back of the red chant books. And what else does Zuno say? If you can help us by donating, you can go online and
Help us.
do that. Give us a Christmas present.
She's watching right now, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I'm at home.
Somebody's got to be the leader.
May the miracles penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-o san shi shi fu. Shi-san bu sa mo ro sa mo ro ja ho ro mi. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect SokukoJi Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.